Hi, my name is Sam Scheikowitz, and I'm the founder of 4b.org. And in this video, I'll be distilling some content from a YouTube conversation between Lex Fridman and Daniel Smachtenberger to focus on a specific part of this wide-ranging conversation. In this case, liquid democracy at various levels in society. So Daniel Smachtenberger is one of my favorite thinkers, and he's concerned with the big risks we face in society. And Lex Fridman is an engineer, and he's the host of his podcast with 1.6 million subscribers.
The idea of an open society, participatory governance, is can we have order that is emergent rather than imposed, so that we aren't stuck with chaos and infighting and inability to coordinate, and we're also not stuck with oppression. And what would it take to have emergent order? This is the most kind of central question for me these days.
Now, because I'm building 4B, a liquid democracy platform, I'm adding my own commentary as a way for you to understand my thinking and my motivations, and also to invite your input around this topic. So I'm doing a similar process of distilling Daniel Smachtenberger's thinking around the topics of financial and ethical concerns around building a liquid democracy app, proposition crafting in an app like this, the psychological and cultural effects that this technology could have, and how it might affect things like politics and term limits and long-term planning in states. So if you agree or disagree with any of the ideas in this video, or have ideas of your own to share, please let me know in the comments. Okay, let's get started.
So let's come back to the fundamental thing. The fundamental thing is we want a kind of order at various scales, from the conflicting parts of ourself actually having more harmony than they might have, to family, extended family, local, all the way up to global. We want emergent order where our choices have more alignment, right? We want that to be emergent rather than imposed. Emergent order requires us, in our choice making, requires us being able to have related sense making and related meaning making processes. Can we apply digital technologies and exponential tech in general to try to increase the capacity to do that, where the technology called a town hall, the social tech that we'd all get together and talk, obviously is very scale limited, and it's also oriented to geography rather than networks of aligned interest. Can we build new, better versions of those types of things? Yeah, fundamentally that's the thing that has to happen.
So Daniel and Lex are discussing a platform that could allow for an emergent order. It's not chaos and infighting on one side, and it's not top-down imposed authoritarian order on the other side. So just imagine a system that allows people to develop and manage ideas, to make decisions together, to do long-term planning on all levels of society, from the personal and the family to groups and organizations and businesses, to neighborhoods, towns, cities, states, and nations, to include verticals like all farmers or all doctors, and ultimately to include the world. And this is exactly what we're building with 4b.org. Our strategy is to match the decision-making processes we use naturally, both within ourselves as individuals and in groups. And we hope to make this available to everyone.
But yes, so if you think about our body and the billions of cells that are in it.
Well, you don't have, think about how ridiculous it would be to try to have all the tens of trillions of cells in it with no internal organization structure, right? Just like a sea of protoplasm, it wouldn't
Pure
work.
democracy.
And so you have cells and tissues, and then you have tissues and organs and organs and organ systems. And so you have these layers of organization, and then obviously the individual in a tribe, in a ecosystem. And each of the higher layers are both based on the lower layers, but also influencing them. Yeah. I think the future of civilization will be similar, which is there's a level of governance that happens at the level of the individual, my own governance of my own choice. I think there's a level that happens at the level of a family. We're making decisions together, we're inter-influencing each other and affecting each other, taking responsibility for the idea of an extended family. And you can see that for a lot of human history, we had an extended family, we had a local community, a local church, or whatever it was. We had these intermediate structures, whereas right now there's kind of the individual producer, consumer, taxpayer, voter, and the massive nation-state global complex, and not that much in the way of intermediate structures that we relate with, and not that much in the way of real personal dynamics, all impersonalized, made fungible.
So as Daniel discusses, 4B starts out as a tool for individuals. We have what we call the scratch pad, sometimes called the democracy of one, where individuals can develop their own ideas and thinking and add reasons why or why not or who or how, attributes like time sensitivity, resources that may be needed, lists of action steps, and any kind of media or document as an attachment or evidence. And if they choose to share that idea in any community, all of those attributes of their thinking processes can be shared as well. So 4B members can join or create an infinite number of communities and invite an infinite number of members to each. The communities that plan together are these intermediate social structures that Daniel talks about. So one such group could be a family or an extended family. And members could use 4B to plan outings or vacations or collaborate on budgets or projects like renovations. Or they could also make decisions together regarding the care of elderly family members, for example. So next comes businesses and organizations. So groups, businesses, they often are made up of two parts. So one is the core or the leadership, such as the owners or the directors or the executive team, administrators or the board. And then there's the constituency, which is like the customers or the students or the members or employees. Within the core, 4B lets leadership participate in real-time governance, giving a tool to help collect ideas and initiatives and consider the aspects of them like alternate ideas and contexts, time frame, resources, shared documents. It lets them discuss and vote on resolutions before they actually meet. And it helps to keep a record of past initiatives. So this allows leadership to free up precious in-person time and be more productive during meetings. Now for the constituents, organizations that are able to gather ideas from large groups of invested members can make better use of that talent pool connected with their organization. And that's been really difficult in the past, especially with large constituencies. But now 4B allows groups to effortlessly work with an unlimited number of ideas generated by large constituencies like students or customers, and regardless of the number of members. And this opens up the door for your entire constituency to participate in crowdsourcing your strategies and initiatives.
We know why we created term limits, so that we wouldn't have forever monarchs. That's the thing we were trying to get away from, and that there would be checks and balances on power and that kind of thing. But that also has created a negative second order effect, which is nobody does long-term planning. Because somebody comes in who's got 4 years, they want reelected. They don't do anything that doesn't create a return within 4 years that will end up getting them reelected. And so the 30-year industrial development to build high-speed trains or the new kind of fusion energy or whatever it is just doesn't get invested in. And then if you have left versus right, where whatever someone does for 4 years, then the other guy gets in and undoes it for 4 years. And most of the energy goes into campaigning against each other. This system is just dissipating as heat, right? Like it's just burning up as heat. And the system that has no term limits and no internal friction infighting because they got rid of those people can actually coordinate better. But I would argue it has its own fail states eventually and dystopic properties that are not the thing we want.
So members can create online communities for their neighborhoods and work together to develop initiatives like events or zoning proposals, and they could present these to their city or township, backed by the participation of the constituents living in that neighborhood. So towns and cities would have similar processes. So members of a town or city group could be cross-checked by administrators to make sure that the participants are actually residents of that town or city. And if a large enough percentage of verified members of a city collaborate to generate and prioritize proposals, the current elected officials would do well to pay attention and to address those proposals. So either by implementing the most popular ones or by getting involved with the process and adding reasons why or why not and budgetary concerns and things like that. And an active group would likely be able to get engagement by political leaders, and it would initiate a new form of democracy, facilitated actually by elected leaders. So at the scale of towns and higher, the role of experts like city planners, safety officials, health officials becomes more important. And we'll discuss how 4B uses a unique liquid democracy process to manage expert opinions and to help improve the discussion. And also to give members the ability to delegate their vote to whatever expert they trust when a subject becomes too specialized or too detailed for that member's preferences or comfort.
So I think that we have to have global governance, meaning I think we have to have governance at the scale we affect stuff. And if anybody is messing up the oceans, that matters for everybody. So that can't only be national or only local. Everyone is scared of the idea of global governance because we think about some top-down system of imposition that now has no checks and balances on power. I'm scared of that same version, so I'm not talking about that kind of global governance. It's why I'm even using the word governance as a process rather than government as an imposed phenomena. And so I think we have to have global governance, but I think we also have to have local governance, and there has to be relationships between them that each, where there are both checks and balances in power, flows of information. So I think governance at the level of cities will be a bigger deal in the future than governance at the level of nation states, because I think nation states are largely fictitious things that are defined by wars and agreements to stop wars and like that. I think cities are based on real things that will keep being real, where the proximity of certain things together, the physical proximity of things together, gives increased value of those things. So you look at like Jeffrey West's work on scale and finding that companies and nation states and things that have a kind of complicated agreement structure get diminishing return of production per capita as the total number of people increases beyond about the tribal scale, but the city actually gets increasing productivity per capita. But it's not designed, it's kind of this organic thing, right? So there should be governance at the level of cities because people can sense and actually have some agency there. Probably neighborhoods and smaller scales within it, and also verticals. And some of it won't be geographic, it'll be network-based, right? Networks of affinities. So I don't think the future is one type of governance.
So moving outward to states and countries, the process is pretty similar to towns and cities. Now, Daniel discusses planning on large scale like states and nations. And in my opinion, all of the widely used methods of collaboration around sense-making and governance that communist and democratic governments use alike are broken in several ways. And first of them is that none of them are very collaborative. So these systems draw from the intelligence and thinking of a very small number of contributors. And the solutions considered are often limited to the interests of a very small number of people at the top. So due to the need for re-election in democratic governments, the solutions that are considered are usually short-term, in under 4 years, for example. And the fact that so-called democratic governments have never implemented ways to poll the people, to discover the people's priorities, and hold leaders accountable to their constituents' preferences is certainly aligned with class interests, as far as I can see. So larger numbers of people means that 4B's search, sort, and filter processes are important in order to reduce the overwhelm that members could experience and make sure that the best ideas are more likely to rise to the top and be initiated. At the scale of the world, 4B can facilitate the process of helping gather the best ideas and initiating the most important conversations regarding things that would affect everybody in the world.
The exponential tech gives us a novel problem landscape. Our existing problem-solving processes aren't doing a good job. We have had more countries get nukes. We haven't done nuclear deproliferation. We haven't achieved any of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We haven't kept any of the new categories of tech from making arms races. So our global coordination is not adequate to the problem landscape. So we need fundamentally better problem-solving processes. A market or a state is a problem-solving process. We need better ones that can do the speed and scale of the current issues. Right now, speed is one of the other big things, is that by the time we regulated DDT out of existence or cigarettes not for people under 18, they'd already killed so many people, and we let the market do the thing. But as Elon has made the point, that won't work for AI. By the time we recognize afterwards that we have an autopoetic AI that's a problem, you won't be able to reverse it, that there's a number of things that when you're dealing with tech that is either self-replicating and disintermediates humans to keep going, doesn't need humans to keep going, or you have tech that just has exponentially fast effects, your regulation has to come early. It can't come after the effects have happened. The negative effects have happened because the negative effects could be too big too quickly. So we basically need new problem-solving processes that do better at being able to internalize externality, solve the problems on the right time scale and the right geographic scale. And those new processes, to not be imposed, have to emerge from people wanting them and being able to participate in their development, which is what I would call kind of a new cultural enlightenment or renaissance that has to happen, where people start understanding the new power that exponential tech offers, the way that it is actually damaging current governance structures that we care about and creating an X-risk landscape, but could also be redirected towards more protopic purposes. And then saying, how do we rebuild new social institutions? What are adequate social institutions where we can do participatory governance at scale and time? And how can the people actually participate to build those things? The solution that I see working requires a process like that.
So Daniel mentions verticals, and that's a key component in 4B. So imagine democratic groups made up of experts in specific fields, like climate scientists or economists or doctors, experts in constitutional law, agricultural experts, cybersecurity experts. So each of these democratically run groups of experts would have the ability to craft proposals, as well as be able to give their opinion regarding topics related to their expertise. So the beautiful thing about a true fluid democracy system is that individual voters could voluntarily delegate their vote to individuals or groups. So if there was a policy regarding climate change, voters could delegate their vote on that policy to the organization of verified climate scientists, or to a particular scientist, or to any other person that they believe is thinking clearly about the topic. So in this way, the delegation of power is completely voluntary, it's meritocratic, and instead of having debates between party officials who, if we're going to be honest, are not really experts in much except for politics and their party's policies, the democratic platform would host debates between the members who hold the most delegated votes on a given issue. So that would include members within expert groups who might have different opinions, allowing members to decide if any group or candidate is indeed worthy of their trust. So I hope you're starting to see how a fluid democratic system could correct the major failings we see in our political world, and how 4B has developed some innovative and unique systems to make fluid democracy possible and easy to use. To get updates on the progress, you can sign up to our mailing list at 4b.org and check out our other videos featuring Daniel Smachtenberger. So I've done a similar process of distilling Daniel's thinking. And again, the topics there include financial and ethical concerns around building a liquid democracy app, proposition crafting in an app like this, the possible psychological and cultural effects that this technology could have, and how it might affect states, politics, and long-term planning. So click on the links to check those out. And I hope the content here inspires you to get involved in how we can create a better world together. And please voice your agreement or disagreement, or share your own vision in the comments section. I read all the comments. Now please share this video with your friends on other platforms if you like it, such as Facebook or Twitter, in order to facilitate this debate. We're going to be producing more videos and doing interviews on this topics related to fluid democracy. So if you enjoy the content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel or group for more content like this. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.